Experience work interactions in a different and refreshing light. This is the Leader in You podcast, brought to you by EMC Leaders, taking care of the teams you care about, as well as a connected culture.
Welcome, everyone, and welcome back to the Leader in You. We're so excited to be here. My name is Paulina, and I am co-hosting this incredible podcast with my amazing mom, Dr. Lola Gershfeld. Welcome, Mom.
Thank you, Paulina. So nice to be here. Hello,
And
everyone.
and we are so excited to have our two very special guests today. We have David and Alexandria here. So welcome, guys. Thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely. Yeah, great. Thanks for being here. And thanks for hosting.
Yeah.
Thanks for having
So,
us.
yes, thank you for coming. We actually did a podcast with you guys, right, a few weeks ago.
Yes. Yep.
So we had such a good time. We were so excited to bring you guys onto our podcast to talk about what you do because we were just so excited. Do you feel the excitement through the camera? Okay, so let's start with just why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, David and Alexandria? We know that you own a company and we want to hear about it.
Awesome. Yeah. So the company's called OwlHub. Imagine, owl like wise owl. It's we like to say where wise leaders gather. And my background is I've been in executive coaching for 27 years. At one point along the journey, I decided to do my PhD and I studied 16 of the world's best coaches to find out what do they actually do when they're going about their coaching interactions that have their conversations come alive and get paid $1,000, in some cases over $10,000 per hour. What are they doing in those conversations and how do they shape them? And it turns out that there are 7 distinct styles that we use when we go about effective conversations, and that we need all 7 in order to be the most effective leaders possible and the most effective coaches possible. And so we turned that into a set of assessments and training and all that stuff to help people become better leaders, better coaches along the way.
That's amazing. What
Yeah,
about you,
that's
Alexandria?
My favorite dad joke of the hour is my first attempt at a joke, first attempt at adulting. I was a therapist. I worked in addictions and the Department of Corrections, and I got burnt out doing that because that's a difficult field to work in for a long period of time. I took a hard turn into tech, and I did that for about 8 years, and then it was fine, but it wasn't everything I wanted it to be. And I was like, okay, how can I actually bring these two very different fields of experience into one? And coaching was actually the answer to that question. And in that journey, I actually came across David, and he actually reached out to me originally, was like, hey, would you like to be a guest on my podcast? And I was like, sure, that sounds great. And then we started talking more, and it was actually like, maybe we actually work together. And so that was like 3 years ago, and we've been working together ever since.
yeah.
Oh, amazing. I love that. I actually absolutely love what you said about OwlHub and how it came about. Was there like a moment? I know that you also have a book called Respect Coaching Styles. Is that correct?
Instead, it's an assessment that helps people understand their coaching styles. The book is forthcoming.
Oh,
However,
oh.
yes, yeah, it's still
Okay.
arriving, but
Oh, okay. I
yes.
just looked
So
into your future.
yes, exactly. Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, yeah. So today, people can actually take an assessment that takes about 5 minutes or so and see the styles that they use the most and the styles that they use the least. And what I've been finding we've done this with thousands of coaches and leaders so far, and we find that our biggest challenges, whether they're as a leader or as a coach, your biggest challenges or problems are actually hidden inside of your least used styles.
Mm.
It's when we don't do or we can't address certain things, that's when we end up with big issues or big problems, right? So, for example, if somebody is high in one of the styles, and respect is an acronym, by the way, and there are different styles, and I can go over that here in a second. But one of those styles is called Confidant, which is that sort of the warm, friendly, wanting to empathize with people, have them feel safe and seen. If you have too much of that, I'll call it heart, and not enough provocateur,
Mm.
sometimes what you'll do is you'll avoid the difficult conversation. And your version of having a hard conversation is, well, how you been feeling lately? But what you really want to say is, you haven't been showing up on time. What the heck's going on? And we need to correct that behavior, right? But you might avoid the hard conversation if you're high in one of the styles, but low in another. And these dynamics play out all the time, but we haven't had language to understand what these core 7 styles are, how to use them, but then also kind of where we're starting from. And that's what the respect coaching styles assessment and work is all about.
Oh, interesting. I'm intrigued. I want to take this assessment because I feel like I really enjoy having deep conversations, but also I can see, when people maybe are not as responsive to those kinds of deep conversations. So then
Yes.
yes, I can easily shift. That's what I notice into a space where the people that I'm surrounded with can still feel comfortable to be themselves in those conversations. But I do see there's such differences in the way that people show up in those relationships. So I didn't know that there's those 7 styles, and that's so interesting to learn about. It really gives us like clarity and how people work and
Yeah.
function in
Well,
conversation.
it's very interesting, David. What you're saying is actually from an attachment perspective, we recognize that people actually use protective behaviors, like if they are using a lot more heart and not really getting to the heart of the problem, right? The issue. It's
Yeah.
they're using the protective behaviors because they don't want to disconnect further with
Yes.
people in their relationship. So it's always there's always a driver, right? And the driver is
Yeah.
emotion. So
Mhm.
I'm happy you putting that in perspective, because I think the first thing is to recognize what's going on and how people self-awareness, right? Increasing your self-awareness, recognizing what are you doing not to get to the heart of the matter, and how can you shift and create better maybe effectiveness as a leader.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Alexandria
Would it be,
yeah, go ahead.
no, no, please go ahead.
Okay. I was just wondering too, from your perspective, what is like your favorite part of this process? Do you like the coaching and the shift people take, or the awareness, or what would you say, like in this experience that you're working with David, what is your favorite part?
Well, that depends on what do you talk to me and what class are we teaching? Because all of it can be very, very fun. So for some people, yeah, it is that shift in oh, I was struggling reaching and connecting with my team. And then I realized it was the missing styles that was actually what was blocking me from being able to connect with my team. And now that I've gained these skills and the styles that I wasn't really utilizing, I had this moment of, oh, okay, now I can actually connect with my team. And that can be very, very fun. And then for others, it's this whole piece of, wait, I can ask my team questions. I don't have to know all the answers myself. So, like, that aha moment is always a very fun moment where I'm like, wait, did you ask them? Like, did you just ask the question? And so that can be very fun. It's also sometimes it's just the pattern of behavior. And while humans are very different from one another, sometimes at our cores, we're all just very much the same,
Yeah.
all just humans at the end of the day. And like you were talking about, we all just want connection, and that being very important to us. And how we go about doing it sometimes is different and sometimes maladaptive, but at the end of the day, that is what we're actually wanting and trying to achieve. And so there's lots of very fun parts about working with David. It's teaching the classes, it's one-on-one coaching, it's the helping people hone their skills in coaching. I'm very bad at picking favorites, so sorry.
You know what? Actually, after like I asked you that question, I did a video once because I am a content creator also on social media, and I did a video once talking about how like I don't even like favorite questions where it's like, what's your favorite? Because I like so many different things, you know? But I like it came to me because I feel like coaching in this realm can have its challenges. People are new to these kinds of ideas. They don't really have a lot of awareness for what happens to them, that we don't know that how we contribute. We think that there's nothing wrong. We think that everything's fine and dandy. And so we kind of settle, right? We settle into the whatever it is that is what we're experiencing. So learning this new ways and these new perspectives it can be very challenging, teaching someone that is not aware of this kind of stuff. So what would you guys say would be like a step that you take? Like, so what does it look like? Let's say you go into coaching a team or a company. What does it look like? What do you guys do?
Yeah, usually what we start off with is oftentimes a workshop to say, here are the 7 different styles that we all use. We're all already using them, right? These 7 styles are hidden inside of every question we ask, every statement we make. So we review them. This acronym again is respect, and I like to say that the best way to respect others is to give them the coaching that they need and want, versus necessarily use the styles that we're most comfortable with. So to be adaptive to others. And so the 7 styles are the R for the rallier. The R is the rallier, and that's more that action goal oriented style. The educator is about building up people's skill sets. The strategist is helping them solve problems. The provocateur is helping them poke holes in their thinking and rethink maybe their assumptions. The explorer is about expanding their thinking and kind of getting them out of those thought ruts. The confidant is that heart-centered, connection, empathy-oriented style. And then the transformer is about helping them become the very best version of them, which sometimes means that we have to face the fear of failure and imposter syndrome and all that gets in our way. And so sometimes it's the inner change that we need in order to create that outer aspirational reality for ourselves. And so those 7, ideally, when we're interacting with people, we weave in and out of them, right? Rather than clustering into a couple styles that we feel comfortable with and then not using some of the other ones. So often we start off with a workshop that gives everybody the understanding of the styles. They have an assessment that they take to see their styles and the way that they pattern out, so that they can see their own personal growth edge around how they can show up better for the people that they're working with. And oftentimes that's leaders working with their direct reports. And then there's a second step that sometimes comes after that, which is, so we can give you a graph to show you, hey, here's how you coach. But then the next question becomes, but how do the people on your team want to be coached by you? And so we have an assessment for that too, so that people can see the exact styles that people want, so that you can tailor your coaching to them, again, rather than just sort of having the styles that you are most comfortable with or not. So,
it just like reminds me of, I know this is different, but it reminds me of like the love languages in a relationship, right?
Yeah.
If you are, I like to say, all the love languages are at the top of my list. I don't have like one more than the other. I just want them all the time. But yeah, it's very similar in a different context, of course. But because each one, as you were explaining, I was like, oh yeah, I feel like I can resonate to that, or I feel like I resonate to that as well, or I feel like I resonate to that. And it's very cool that we could take this approach and have this assessment to figure out what are our strengths, right? And then where are the weaknesses and how we can grow those into strengths. So what's like ideal? What is ideal coming from a workshop or an assessment, or a coaching session with you? What do we want to do? What's the result or the end goal in learning all this?
Yeah, and Alexandria, feel free to chime in on this answer with me. But I feel like the main thing is we want to have all possibilities open to us in any given moment, to be able to let, instead of our I'll call it patterns or entrenched behaviors, decide what we do, to be adaptive enough to give them and the moment and the context that you're in, to have that shape where you go in terms of what you say and how you say it. It could be a question, explore a question. Well, what's meaningful about that to you? Or it could be more of a goal-oriented rallier to say, tell me about the goal that you have, right? And that would be a statement version of that interaction. And so there's also other subtleties that we have in the assessment around how direct or indirect you are and things like that. So ideally, we're adapting to the moment according to what the moment needs, and that we're taking into account their preferences, ideally. That's my view of it. Alexandra, what would you say?
Yeah, so just like kind of expanding maybe with a more specific example. So let's just say that your typical go-tos are you're in the more the rallier strategist, maybe educator styles. Those are your preference styles. And so
Sounds
you're
like my husband.
I would say it's a lot of people in IT, it's a lot of people in upper leadership, it's a lot of people maybe even in finance potentially. So you have a lot of folks who approach conversations in the problem-solving mode. And so we've all experienced those types of folks, and I, guilty as charged, am also one of them, even though I have gone to years and years of school to not be one of those people. When I am tired, I am still one of those people, right? And so when you go and have a conversation, but you are not looking for your problem to be solved, it's frustrating and it can be disheartening and discouraging sometimes. So the goal would be when people leave our training and people leave with their assessment, they have an understanding of how to more or less stop themselves from being in that just go-to mode and to be able to pause long enough. So essentially being in a higher level of emotional maturity to say, this is what I want to do. I immediately want to solve their problem. But what do they actually want me to do? What do they actually need me to do right now? Because sometimes those are also two very different things, what they want and what they need. But being
Mm.
able to read the moment and say, here's the right tool for this exact right moment. This is not a time to solve this problem. They actually just need to be heard first. And maybe
Mm.
if I hear them, they already have a solution. So let's see what actually happens if I do that and just give them a moment. And if they can stop long enough to meet the moment, like David was just talking about, then what possibilities open up? And that's actually what we want the leaders to be able to do.
Got it. I have a follow-up, but Mom, I'll let you take
Well, I
the floor.
remember being in that same place, right? I remember like reading the books, and I want to be that way because we have an ideal. We do want, I mean, I feel like managers really want to be more effective. They do. And team members want to be good employees, team members, and they do. They all have good intentions, and it's very difficult sometimes to actually get to that place because like Alexandra, you were sharing, like, can I slow it down? Can I slow myself down and to really hold that space for the other person, to for them to feel heard and to feel like I'm with them in that experience rather than just right away shooting my solutions or solving their problem. And that's so hard when you don't understand the emotional experiences that you are part of, or like you said, really not recognizing or don't know what do the person need, because want and need, you're right, it could be different. I remember working with this team, and the person wanted the manager to solve the problem, but what they actually wanted, they needed reassurance. They
That they
needed
were important.
reassurance,
That
right?
they were important,
Yeah, that
you
they're
know?
important, that they're
Yeah.
valued, that they can do it. They just wanted the reassurance that the manager believes in them. And this is so different. And you're correct. People have to be taught this different things. So I like the idea with the tool, right? You have a
Yeah,
toolbox with all the tools, and then you can use each of your tools in the right moment. This is it. This is
yeah.
the moment. I love it.
Well,
Just like visual, right? You can use a flathead screwdriver to mostly sometimes get out even the Phillips head screw, but it doesn't really work as well as if you had the Phillips head screwdriver. So we really want them to have both of the screwdrivers so that they can actually use the right one.
so I have one more question before we end today. And my question is, what I heard you say is that, yeah, it's really important to learn this process and to be able to pause. And instead of like, what do I need? Or, what do I want, to kind of reflect back on being available, to be responsive to the other person's needs and wants, or wants and needs, or recognize what they actually need instead of what they're asking for, what they're saying they want. But do you guys also teach how to be able to communicate and express what, like, let's say you're on the receiving end and you're like, oh, hey, like, I really want to, respond to there. Well, what about the other person being able to actually communicate what it is that they need and or they want? Because I think this is the biggest issue that we see too, is that we teach and are able to educate people on how to create an emotionally safe environment so someone feels safe enough to communicate. But the biggest problem is whether people can actually recognize what's happening with them and communicate those things that they need, right? So you can
Yeah.
be there available to be responsive to someone's needs all day long, but are they available and ready or informed and educated to communicate the needs?
I love that question. And that really goes to this idea of creating coaching cultures. And so
Mm-hmm.
one organization, they sent two people through our Train the Trainer program, because we have a program that helps companies take this inside and do the training inside of their organizations, or coaches who go and work with other leaders to have that and kind of go in. So these two people went through our Train the Trainer program, and they gave the coaching styles assessment to every single person in the company, including people who are individual contributors. And they taught them, they did a workshop with them, and they had this idea of, what if we turn everybody into a coach, meaning that anyone could turn to anyone else to do coaching. Well, they were trying to get their job satisfaction to increase, and previous research had shown that if you do that, you end up getting 24% increase in your job satisfaction. And so what they found, though, in rolling out Respect, is they ended up getting 180% increase in employee satisfaction in 3 months. And then when measured again 2 years later, it was also at that same elevated level. So it was a permanent culture change. And some of the stories that came back were saying, we introduced the language of respect into our culture so that when somebody went into their manager's office, they could say to them, hey, would you give me a little provocateur in this idea? Like, I want you to poke holes in this. And it gave them almost the empowerment to have language to say what they were wanting or needing. Or, hey, let's do a little explore. Like, I really just want to expand my thinking around this. And so having a shared language around our wants and needs, I think, is incredibly powerful, especially when it gives them agency around how to shape the conversation from their manager in ways that would be most helpful for them in a moment.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that's so awesome. I love statistics stuff and like assessment before and after, because it's like proof that it's working,
Yeah.
And we don't have these tools when we're younger. We don't even know how to integrate this kind of stuff in relationships, in our personal life. And the way that we deal with relationships in our personal life translates to the relationships we have in the workplace. So
What I'm realizing is that attachment theory probably goes together with styles very well. And why I'm saying that is, I think that sometimes if people feel insecure about how they're showing up as a leader, or they're not wanting to venture off into new things that they haven't necessarily made their own, or haven't felt like they know how to do very well. So they may have experience with Rallier, which is goal orientation. They may have experience with sharing their knowledge, which is Educator, and solving problems, which is Strategist. They may have, I'll call it a quote, secure attachment to those styles, but when they go into trying other new styles, maybe where their vulnerability comes up. And so one of the things that I was thinking about is, our goal is to help people have more options, more exposure to these various styles, to understand how to use them, how they can support them, so that they feel more and more secure in having the conversations that they need to have, so that when an emotion comes up, they're not thrown off or avoidant. Or when they have to have that hard conversation with Provocateur, that they feel comfortable and secure in doing so. Um, and in my mind, those kind of go together. And Lola, I'd love your perspective on that. To what degree do you feel like people have attachments to maybe some of the behaviors that they find most comfortable to them?
I would think that it's a relationship, right? So I think their response and their behavior go hand in hand of the security in the relationship with whatever relationship they are dealing with. Let's say if they have a boss or an employee who they don't have a secure relationship, they might be a more educated, that like lecturing them more, educating them more, or maybe giving them more direction instead of holding their space for them, because they don't feel comfortable, they don't feel secure in that attachment, in that relationship. So I look at it in relationship perspective, saying they respond or they behave a certain way because of insecurity in the relationship. Now, once they feel much more secure, like with our process, if you do the emotional connection process and you actually repair the disconnection that have been either happening in your relationship or maybe have never occurred, like there was never a moment where you could create a secure connection, then once people feel much more secure and they go through that process, what happens is all of those roles that you talk about, David, they come naturally. They come with ease. So people are no longer have this urgency of either shutting down, of not saying, being afraid to say something, or trying to lecture somebody, or trying to solve the problem, or being overly empathic, because they feel secure in that relationship. They're a lot more balanced. And to your point of wanting, I'm thinking about my own professional experience when I worked as an HR manager or CFO or board member. I'm thinking to myself how much I wanted to be all of those roles that you said. How much I wanted to know which role to use when. And all the time I would only get stuck because I didn't know how to get this person to talk to me, because they would shut down all the time. Or I didn't know how in meeting the CEO would just take over and be lecturing us. And I didn't know how to pass through that. The security in the relationship provides us I think the water where we swim, uh, opportunity to do all of those roles. Alexandria, you have more knowledge in psychology. What do you think?
No, yeah, I would say like you're talking about two different versions of security versus and vulnerability. So like attachment theory is much more the connection between two people versus like my ability to feel confident in performing a behavior and being willing to be vulnerable in front of people. And so, like, if we're talking about, say, a CEO who always goes hard provocateur and they can't figure out why people don't want to talk to them, if they're coming from an avoidant attachment, they're highly protective of themselves because they are concerned about disconnection. And so they're so concerned about disconnection that they never let people in the first place because then they never have to worry about disconnection.
Right, yeah.
And so they just hard protect themselves from ever having a connection in the first place, that they never have to worry about having their heart broken because, well, I never get connected. And so that's the avoidant way of connecting is I just don't do it because then I don't have to worry about it. So they're not even thinking about the level of vulnerability with trying something new or feeling insecure. Like it's from an attachment theory perspective, like that's more of like a confidence conversation versus an attachment theory conversation.
Hmm. Yes, and I remember studying with Sue Johnson, and she would always point me to emotion, right? Emotion is what moves us into behavior. So you're correct. People might protect themselves and say, well, I don't want to be connected with my coworkers or with my boss because I don't really, I'm here to do a job. But our brain really seeks connection, and that's what the attachment really teaches us. People can't really be without connection because we start to feel very lonely and isolated. So
Mhm.
I'm just curious. I mean, David, you say that people, see an improvement and in job satisfaction when they start to practice, right, behaviorally change their behavior to become more coaching style or more empathic style and create that emotional safety. And then after 2 years, which is amazing because usually behavioral styles, behavioral approach doesn't last long. But you see in your work that it does make a shift, which is very, very amazing.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. And yeah, this is really fun. As I'm thinking about this, that makes a lot of sense. And clearly attachment theory is sort of outside my scope, which is why I was sort of floating that, question. But then another thing sort of bubbles up for me to say, and to what degree do we have a secure and an insecure attachment within ourselves? You know,
Well, I mean, it's always
uh,
with ourselves.
Well,
well, yeah,
one
but
second. We are in relationship with other people. So I hear
uh-huh,
what you're saying that we could be secure within ourselves, but still we have confidence and our security in ourselves is represented by how secure we have that relationship with people around us, like our partner, our key attachment figures, our parents, our siblings, and the people we depend on at work. So
yeah,
like, for example, I remember in like working with this particular company and they were in chaos. The whole company was a very bad culture because there was no security in the relationship in any of these teams. But once people started to feel more connected, especially like the founders started to feel more connected. They were less aggressive behavior. They were less shut down. They were able to talk to each other. They were able to be there for each other. Other people, like their employees, like their children, right? The founders are parents, and the direct employees are more of a child. And everything becomes the culture started to shift, and people started to feel a lot safer. Not necessarily now the teams also needed more connection because they were
hmm
all stressed and they had hurt feelings and they had the ruptures, and that fear of rejection started to shift from fear of rejection to acceptance, fear of
hmm
rejection to clarifying connection, to create more security. So what they started to feel, they started to have this safe harbor and secure place where they can come back to regain their balance and seek that balance with each other because we are co-regulators of each other's emotions. So
hmm
we
absolutely.
definitely, I hear, Alexandria, what you're saying, that we have a security with each other, with ourselves, and we can be secure. But the fastest way to get that security is when you have that security with other people.
Well, because you don't really know what's going on with that attachment until you attempt to attach with another human.
Exactly. Yes,
Like you
exactly.
can only do so much relationship healing alone. At some point, it
Definitely.
has to
Yeah.
be tested with another human. And the reason that think that why this behaviorally works and like it's long standing is because in a coaching relationship, it technically doesn't matter where the coach is coming from and sitting because there's no judgment coming from the coach, right? The coachee is the hero, right? The one doing the coaching is just asking questions. And so if your questions aren't leading and your questions aren't like they're open-ended questions that are based in curiosity and you're truly listening for the sake of listening versus listening to respond, then the other person is going to feel heard. They're going to feel seen. And so I think if you are asking those questions, and that's how we teach people to ask questions, we're teaching them to ask coaching questions, with the extra layer of, are you solving a problem? Are you teaching? Are you setting a goal? Are you connecting with their feelings? Are you opening it wider? Are you looking to grow? Are you poking holes? When you ask it with an extra point, then you get another layer of human connection. And so, even if you're not thinking from the place of a meaning to connect with this person, it happens because as humans, we are connectors. And so, whether you've done any of your own attachment work or not, it almost doesn't matter in the coaching scenario as long as you're staying in that curiosity
I love
and you're
it.
making the other person the hero.
Yes, you're absolutely right, because you are creating a new emotional experience. And with that new emotional experience, you're actually connecting with your coach, right? And the manager becomes a coach. And so he or she is allowing that connection to happen just through the curiosity of asking that question. You're basically sending a message to the person that I care about you. I care about your
Yeah.
experience.
Mhm.
And
I
I am
care.
here for you. In this
Yes,
moment,
I'm
it's
here for you
about
because you are important to me, right? All of these are attachment needs where we do in the process when there's a conflict and we're trying to repair the connection, we actually make that explicit, right? We explicitly saying like we lost that in the moment when you got triggered and you became disconnected, you got the message that you're no longer important. And so we want to repair that connection. And I love what you're saying, Alexandria, is that by teaching people to ask the right questions, you are creating a better relationship with people. You are creating a better connection. You are securing that attachment with them. Whether you know it or not, you are doing it by default, by that experience. I like it. I like it a lot. Where I see sometimes coaches, and I'm trying to share the importance of having team connection, right? Because the
Yeah.
person, when they do individual coaching, they share the information with the coach and they create that connection. But what they actually seek is connection with their team members or with their boss. And so, how do we create as coaches? And I love to do the sessions with two people or three people in a session, because now I have the relationship right here in front of me. And now I can
Mhm.
lead them to create that connection. So how can more coaches and more managers learn how to repair that connection with each other, with team members, so they can create more secure attachment, secure relationships in the companies.
Yeah, I love that. I often say to people, the probably the most important thing you could do if somebody is in conflict, as a coach, when somebody's in conflict with somebody else, is to coach them toward the other person,
Yes. Hmm.
right? And to not only say, well, where are you right now? How are you feeling? How are you thinking? What are your beliefs? What are your values, right? And then now, what do you think the other person is feeling and thinking? And what are their beliefs and what are their values? And what are some of the things you already share between the two of you, the places where you connect already on things you both hold dear? And then how can you appreciate where they're coming from such that, of course, they have that perspective, right? And that you can maybe share your perspective with them and you can say, hey, and here's what I imagine you're feeling and thinking, right? And so to coach people towards one another. But I love having multiple people in the room to perhaps do some of that work. So whether it's, you're a coach and coaching them towards each other with just that one-on-one, or you have them both there, or more than two, I think is fabulous. So I love that idea.
Yeah, no, thank you, David. And I see that the relationship actually becomes stronger as people hear each other's vulnerability, can turn
Yeah.
to each other, can share that in a way, and ask for what they need to feel safe and connected in a very professional way. I feel like you know, um, the magic happens right there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this was so fun.
Well, you guys, thank you so much, Mom. Do you want to add anything
Well,
before
I
we?
just want to give both David and Alexandria how people can find you, and maybe
Yes.
whatever the last thing you want to share with them, maybe a workshop that is coming up. Please feel free to
Yeah.
share.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. So our website is owlhub.com, OWLHUB.com. On the front page, you can actually find your top coaching style, the style you use the most. There's a quiz right on that front page, so you can get that. One of the courses that we have coming up is called the Coaching Leader Foundations class, which is about helping leaders, instead of thinking like, well, how do I coach versus how do I manage? How do we stick it together? That's actually what this course teaches you how to do, to integrate it effortlessly in the role that you have and to empower people in the best ways possible that also gets you and the organization's needs met. So that's one of the courses we have coming up. So,
And
So, are you
Alexandria,
on
do you want
social media?
to, Alexandria, do you want to say anything? The last few last things, thoughts?
Oh, I mean, I'm found in the same place David is found.
Are you guys on social media? LinkedIn?
yes,
Instagram?
absolutely. Yeah, LinkedIn is probably my main
Same.
haunt.
Wonderful. Well, thank you guys so much. You guys heard it from the best. You can find David and Alexandria at OwlHub.com, and you can also find them on LinkedIn. Thank you so much for watching the Leader in You podcast. We are so grateful for your time, your energy, and your excitement to thrive in the workplace environment. We'll see you next week.
Thank
Bye.
you very much. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for listening. It's a joy to share these podcasts with you. Be sure to check out our previous podcasts and subscribe to join us on our next podcast of The Leader in You, brought to you by EMC Leaders, taking care of the teams you care about. Until then, be well and be focused on your relationships. We'll see you soon.